We get around it.
And guys, that is our intro for this episode of Cinemafia. This is I believe it's the 11th episode of Cinemafia.
Wait, no,
that's right, everyone.
Please restart
Nope, this is good.
That was terrible. I was literally just seeing the worst.
I was literally only recording maybe 7 seconds of it. It was good.
Please.
Guys, let's jump right into it.
Let's go. We have to continue.
Guys.
We have to continue.
This guy's his first episode and he's already being a
genuinely,
loser, listeners.
I wasn't even saying the right words to that song.
Oh, people are going to be really embarrassed.
No, everyone's going to think I'm really stupid. Oh no, I'm on the Cinemafia podcast and I want people to think that I'm cool.
Oh god.
Well, ladies and gentlemen,
intro.
we're really sorry that Asher screamed into the mic just then. But
yeah, we were all doing a bit of screaming.
Just for you.
Restart it.
No, just for you, audience members. We're going to keep going right on and we're going to edit it in post.
This is the 11th episode of Cinemafia. We have a great cast for you today. I am your main host, Lewis. Over to my diagonal, it's Andrew.
Yeah, I'm Andrew.
Gilbert.
G'day
Say
there.
hello.
Hello.
Say hello.
Hello.
Then over here, who have we got over
It's
here?
Asher. Hello.
And special guest. Who's this? What's your name? We're
My
going to
name-
call you.
My legally binding name is Other Asher. That was given to me at birth.
Yeah.
That's right. We have 2 Ashers. What are the coincidences? What are the odds?
What are the coincidences?
What are the coincidences?
What could they possibly
That is what
be?
they say, isn't it?
Oh dear.
Yep, so we've got Asher and Other Asher. We're going to call this new guy, this new friend of ours, Other Asher. We know
that is
that's
my
gonna,
name.
We know that's going to be confusing. We're going to get over it. And look, what film are we looking at today?
I'm already over it.
Normal Asher, would you
All
like
right,
to tell
well,
us about
I
it?
can actually just chime in a wee bit here.
Oh dear.
We're actually looking at the Resident Evil remake.
Oh,
And you know why? Because Mila Jovovich, or however
it
you
right,
say her
yeah.
name, wasn't it? And she was in Resident Evil.
All right,
no,
ladies.
no, that was just a joke. Hey, we're actually watching the Gremlins remake. And you know why? Because there was a scene there where there were little monsters and they look like gremlins.
This bit's
Anyway,
going
that's
on
a bit-
too long.
No,
You
no,
wrap
no,
it
no,
up.
no, no. Okay, I'll be honest this time. We were watching the Hellboy remake. And you know why? Because there was a main character there. He was red. He had sawn off horns like in the original Hellboy from 2004. And the name of the film was Hellboy as well. Isn't that? Yeah, no, okay. We can be for real this time. You can go. Go on.
I don't
That's
think it's
right.
a remake, is it?
It's
just
a reboot.
sequel.
It's a reboot.
Yeah, okay.
It's not a sequel. It's not part of the same canon, and my microphone arm is currently sliding off the table. But you know what, boys? I'm a professional,
Yeah, we're
and I can power
professionals
right
here.
on.
All right.
Why don't you give us the real rundown, Asher?
Yeah, you tell us.
Of this film.
tell
Yeah, I'm
you.
sorry for messing us. Messing us
Thank you
around.
to our
Oh,
listeners
that
for
messed it up.
not leaving just yet.
We can
We-
edit that out.
Just saw Hellboy, the 2009 supernatural fantasy film.
2019.
Teen. I was gonna say it.
All right, good.
Based on the graphic novels by Mike Mignola, Hellboy, caught between the worlds of the supernatural and human, battles an ancient sorceress bent on revenge. Directed by Neil
Would
Marshall.
you say she was hell-bent on revenge?
I
You
would,
said
but
with a wry smile.
I try not to be a bit too gauche, like other Asher over there.
Yeah.
Thank
Was
you.
that was pretty painful, wasn't it, boys?
Yeah.
We can edit it out.
And girls
No, we don't need
who are listening.
We don't have any girls listening to this. This is just
What?
white males sitting in their
Why am I
basements,
doing this then?
Dude,
screaming for their parents. to
Don't
feed
out
them
me
cheetahs.
like that.
Cheetos.
Yeah.
Tell them
You're-
that I'm white.
Save it for after the podcast when you want to abuse everyone, all right? Right now we have to pretend like we like each other.
Yeah.
I see,
And
I
now, if you're quite done,
I'm
Normal Asher,
finished.
I'm
Yeah.
going to pass it over to Andrew, and he's going to explain the Cinemafia game concept in this
Briefly.
podcast
Of
right
course.
now. Go.
Cinemafia is the game that mashes up amateur cinema review and the game Mafia, where we're all sitting in an approximate circle judging this film, but
irrelevant.
one of us isn't telling the truth about their opinion, which we're
Wild.
about going to give. We're about...
Embarrassing.
Oh, no, that's embarrassing. Yeah, what are the coincidences?
Guys,
Andrew.
he is the mafia.
But essentially, what we're going to do is one of us is lying, and it's up to the others to find out if they're lying.
Andrew, what is
I think we already know who's the mafia.
Yeah,
Just
Andrew,
based
you've been a
on
bit
all these
suspicious.
blusters.
That's true.
Andrew? Where can our viewers go to get a little bit of a
Yes.
preview on who the mafia is?
If you want to
they
listen to
spoil
this episode while knowing who the Mafia is / was, then you can go to the website tinyurl.com/Cinemafia spoilers. That is tinyurl.com/Cinemafia
Flawless.
spoilers.
Said perfectly. And look, we've all given our ratings, so
No, we haven't. We haven't given our ratings.
we have not given our ratings.
No, we haven't.
No, we haven't.
It's time to give out our ratings.
Guys, I
blunder.
keep
Oh, I
losing
meant
my-
like we've all
the
written
Mafia.
down our ratings.
Yes.
That's
This
what I
isn't
meant.
good. I keep losing my piece of paper that I write it down on. I don't know where it's going.
Oh, he is such
And I
a
haven't
liar.
changed
He just wants
Well,
to
you hurry
change.
up. I can
I've
probably...
got it. I just
Okay.
did it.
So, shall we give our ratings?
Yeah.
Yep, so we're going to go ahead and give our ratings. I'll go first just because I am the host. I have given this a controversial, potentially, 1.5 out of 10.
Wow. I have given this a 5 out of 10.
I think we know who the Mafia is.
Yeah.
I have given this film a 4 out of 10.
Wow, Andrew.
I have given this
Generous.
film a 1.2 out of 5, which equals a 2.4 out of 10.
Wow, so I'm the low one on this.
He is.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, would we like to speculate a bit about this? I'll just say, I would say I'm surprised that Asher has given this a 5 out of 10, but to be honest, it's Asher. He does like sort of like appreciate shit like this. Like he gave Captain Marvel like a 7 out of 10 on his first viewing. And this film was way worse than that. This film was way worse than The Counselor, which I gave like 3 out of 10 for. So I guess I'm ashamed of you, but I'm not surprised. So I do think that you're being honest.
Thank you.
Andrew giving this a 4 out of 10, I feel like to me that's a bad rating. I think Andrew would agree that a 4 out of 10 is like a bad, it's a bad film, but it's not terrible. And there's probably some things he was able to enjoy about it, but I'm most suspicious of Andrew because I feel like there were maybe not writing, but just general character work in this film that I think he would hate.
Yeah, I can also chime in. As an avid listener to the podcast, I feel like Andrew has been giving consistently harsh reviews to different films, and I feel like a 4 out of 10 is quite generous for this film, which is
Hold on.
undoubtedly one of the,
Hold on.
the
That
lesser
is-
films that
that
we've
is
watched.
too meta for you to come on this show as a guest and be like, hey, Andrew always gives bad reviews, so that means he's going to give
Well,
a
no,
bad
but
review.
you all have access to the same information about the previous podcasts as I do. I'm just saying.
Actually, other Asher, we have far more access.
yeah, 'cause I haven't listened to all the episodes.
And
You're
and
right.
furthermore, what we try to do is try to understand that it's a closed system. One game is different to another. However, we're only human, and
That's right.
sometimes we do rely on previous
Yeah.
experiences, like Asher being really bad.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Well, I mean, they're all staring at me now, and it's up to me to cast aspersions on Lewis. Why don't you tell us why the hell you voted this?
Sure, I guess
1.5
I may as well jump into
out of
giving
10.
my opinions of this film.
Please.
Yeah, I hated this film. It's weird because I feel like they tried to do some stuff. I appreciate the idea of taking like a medieval, European concept and mixing it with the, the idea of heaven and not really heaven and hell, but the mythos of the devil and demons and some satanic queen and bring it into how's this going to work in the modern age and you got like SWATs and guns. Oh, that sounds like a really cool concept, but I guess my main issue was I fucking hated Hellboy. He's one of the, if this is the character in the comics, then I never want to read these comics. I thought he was fucking dreadful. The guy, there's so many one-liners, which, so many scenes that are just bent around him being like, I'm a Capricorn and you're fucking nuts, and like they have like a little bit of a break.
Oh, I just hit the.
Yeah, you
thing.
hit the-
But
you
I would
hit
just had pipe in there that of all of the terrible one-liners, that was one of the least terrible.
Oh God, no! That was
It
one
was
of the
like-
worst for me.
at
That stood
fir-
out the most to me because it's like
There were worse
it's too
ones.
perfectly set up for it's just too unrealistic. Where it's like unrealistic. Oh God, we're getting back into
Unrealistic.
I feel like irrealistic.
Iridescent.
Realistic.
Yeah.
Gloriously incandescent.
Yeah. This was worse than Captain Marvel for me with all the one-liners, especially just because the guy's personality is so fucking annoying. He a lot of the times I couldn't actually understand what he's saying because he's speaking in that very deep vocal fry, and it's not even just when he was speaking Spanish at the start. Just as a
I
character,
agree.
he's not enjoyable at all. I didn't even find any of the like action scenes here to be like dumb fun because it's got that terrible traditional big Hollywood American film style where it's like with every single movement the camera has to move with everything.
Yeah.
I thought all the characters were totally smug and they're meant to come off as being like really strong, but they just come off as annoyingly assertive and up themselves. I didn't like the Asian dude. I didn't like the half black psychic girl.
Daimyo and Alice.
Thank you for that. I also didn't think the actors were very good at playing them, or I guess they were. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. They were trying to come off as smug characters who are always trying to be better than everyone else. So it's like, okay, well, you did a good job at that, but I don't like those for my supporting cast. I really didn't like anything in this film. I like, as I said, I did enjoy some of the ideas. Like when they started introducing back the idea of Arthur and the sword and the stone, I was like, oh, okay, that could be cool. But didn't enjoy this film. Also, the CGI was fucking terrible, especially that giant fight where you can tell, this is the most blatant, most obvious instance of green screening of just inserting some guy in front of a screen. He's running in spot and then they're just putting footage of the giants. I've gone on for a while, but
I'm just
really,
going to
really
delete
did
my
not like this
point
film
where I
at all.
said the giant fight was cool on my notes. So just remove that.
I hated that. God. Oh, and just one last thing. The CGI at the end where it's meant to be the big emotional payoff where the psychic's having Hellboy's father channel through her. It looked terrible. It literally just looks like they got his head in Google Paint or something, put him over just little smudge that's meant to be his body. Yeah,
Just gonna delete that note where I said that. No, I didn't actually.
Yeah, I really, really did not like this film at all. I thought it was going to be like, I heard it was bad, but I thought, okay, I'll get some dumb superhero fun out of this. But yeah, the action wasn't good. The characters were totally unlikable, irredeemable. The concept and
Unredeemable.
execution.
Iridescent.
Yeah, I really didn't like much about this at all. Like maybe a few of the jump scares. As I said, the idea of the medieval thing with the demons, but yeah,
But
everything in execution was
because
bad.
you can go lower than 1.5. You could go to 1. So
Yeah,
it
that's the
was
thing. What stopped it
barely-
going to 1 was like,
Well, I actually think if Lewis was the Mafia, he wouldn't have rated it 1.5 because he can't go lower than
yeah,
0.
Yeah. But then, and just to attack myself, that would be a good reason for a defense, exactly because it's too suspicious. But my reason is, for 1 out of 10, it's like, I really have to really, really, really hate this film. And it's like, as I said, there were some, like, for the most part, it's well shot. You know, like, I can make out the characters when they're on camera. It's not blurry. It's really minimal things like that. It's
yeah.
literally those things
Okay.
that stop it being outright terrible. There's so many moments where they're giving exposition and talking about, oh, we're going to do this, and they're dropping one-liners, and everyone's, you know, as I said, trying to get themselves over, being like, oh, I'm the cool character. That I sort of lost where I was going with that, but like, yeah, I just didn't like anything about this film. But it wasn't outright terrible, but it was pretty terrible. It was pretty awful.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go next then. To talk about why I give this film a 4 out of 10.
Andrew, why don't you go next?
He makes
Yeah.
that joke sometimes. It's annoying.
Yeah.
Why laugh?
4 out of 10. This film was not that good. I wouldn't recommend someone watching it. Someone to watch it. But I... God.
We
I
are
think
all
we know
over
who the
place.
Mafia
My
is.
goodness. It's too early. Regardless of my verbal...
Irregardless. Sorry, it's not.
Iridescently
Yeah.
of my vocal mishaps, I would like to state that I thought this film was a 4 out of 10 for the reasons that are follows. Smug. Oh, God. So much smug bullshit. It dropped a lot. So many stupid one-liners. Hated them. Hate. However, what managed to salvage this film in a few ways for me, rather than wanting to rate it around a 2 or a 3, were the ideas. The stuff like the King Arthur, the stuff like the Blood Witch, the stuff like demons, that sort of lore. I really get into that sort of fantasy aspect.
Can you really rate the film for those elements, given that they were pretty much big rips from the comics? You know, it wasn't really the film that made the original contributions with those ideas. It was the comics, and it was just trying to portray those ideas, you know, seemingly in a really bad way.
I
if we
haven't
didn't
seen
like
the
it.
comics, so therefore I'm able to legally rate this based on what I have seen.
Legally.
Yes,
I see. That
legally.
would hold up in court.
It would hold up in
Supreme
court.
Court.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
I understand what you're trying to say, but because I don't know anything about the comics, really, then I feel like it's all right for me to potentially misguidedly state these opinions. 4 out of 10. It was like the ideas were there in the sense that I really like the idea of blood witch, blood magic is really cool. It's a classic staple in fantasy games. There's one of my favorite games of all time, Dragon Age Origins, features blood magic, and it's really cool.
Also, the idea of like the half demon, half human, which we get at the end, it's also like another staple of like, you know, the sort of dark fantasy sort of style where it's like
Nephilim,
oh,
yeah.
it's like,
That
you know,
sort
the
of
good
stuff.
like the human mixing with the evil. It's meant to be sort of anti-hero, which is I guess what Hellboy's meant to be.
But do you feel like the ideas came together in the storyline, you know, in a good way? Because I feel like you're right. The ideas were there, but the story itself, even just on the drawing board, seems to have fallen apart, you know?
There were things that I appreciated about the story. The biggest part, the best scene, in my opinion, was the opening scene. Even though it had terrible dialogue on top of it.
This was the wrestling thing.
Yeah, that. Or you mean the very opening scene?
When they were talking about King Arthur
Yeah.
and about
Oh,
how he
yeah,
slew
yeah,
the witch
yeah, yeah.
in 510.
Yeah.
I appreciated that scene a lot because even though the dialogue was horrible and cringeworthy,
Yeah.
the actual pacing of that opening was really cool. I
Establishing
liked-
the lore of the world.
That to me, that was a really effective way. Like it was quick. It was dirty.
It looked good.
It was like I liked how it established, and even though the line was like it was a fucking nightmare back in 510 because
Yeah.
of the blood plague, it was like okay, well, fine. I don't care about your lines. I understand what you're trying to establish
If
here.
we remained in that world for the film, I think I would have enjoyed it because, as you said, like the very opening scene where we see like those like dead monsters' bodies like all decaying, and then we see like the knights. I was like, okay, this sort of looks like it's going for like a sort of medieval piece, but with demons. That sounds really cool. And then we cut to like the modern day. One thing I also hated the transitions: Sydney in big letters, England, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
England,
But honestly, I wouldn't drop it down as 1.5 because it still had things going for it. Something that springs to mind to potentially attack you, but just as a general saying for now, is the fact that it was a Hollywood film. It met the basics of a film, which is something that you've said in the past. So that's why I'm a little surprised to hear you rating this Hollywood film high budget.
No,
I'm surprised
50 million, not massive.
Oh,
That's-
wow.
that's a quite small relatively.
That
Yeah.
is a small budget.
See, you say Hollywood film, but actually we watched the credits and there were so many Russian,
Yeah.
Eastern European people working on it.
Was it not a United States film?
Yeah, it was.
It probably was, but
Was
they
it
probably
not?
outsourced everything. Like
Well,
all of the editing.
that's
and
basically
everything.
how it works. A lot
Yeah,
of the CGI is done in
Yeah.
India, for instance, these days.
Basically, I think it met the expectations of a film, even though the characters were frustrating. I liked the magical lore, that sort of thing.
Just to
Really gets
quickly
me going. I'm a big fan of fantasy, so I'll finish it there. For
Just to
now.
quickly defend myself from Andrew's point.
Yeah, just a mild.
As I said, it still has like some of the details where it's like, oh yeah, this is a well-made film to a very minimal extent. That's what, gave it the 1.5. That's why I couldn't go below. Like, to me, honestly, a 1 out of 10 is the lowest I could probably go on like a serious film that's, meant to be an actual serious piece of media. For me, it was just the characters and the story were so irredeemable that like I was really, rolling my eyes and feeling really awkward at so many of the plot points, so many of the characters' interactions. And that happened so many times where I was like, okay, this is getting ridiculous. You have some okay shots, the sound is mixed in well, the lighting is okay at times. That's only enough to get it a 1.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Yep.
Right, so a 5 out of 10, that for me is a film that I don't regret watching. It was worth watching. I would recommend to the listeners that you go check it out. Maybe try get cheap tickets if you can, or Skype them off your mum or something. Because like Lewis has said and Asher has criticized, other Asher, sorry, don't want to call you by a slave name, it did have some serious problems. The contrivedness of a lot of the one-liners, pretty cringy.
I didn't find any of them funny. Any of the lines were
No.
because it's meant to make
The
Hellboy.
Capricorn one
Yeah.
was the only one that I actually kind of liked.
That's the sort of joke you would like, I understand.
Yeah.
That one
I'm an
actually
intellectual.
worked.
His
That one
taste.
actually worked because it was on a couple of levels, in the sense that
Right?
I'm a Capricorn and you're fucking insane was supposed to imply that
It wouldn't work out,
because believing in that stuff is already insane is Hellboy's.
I
opinion.
got it, but it's just I
Like,
just didn't feel
I
that the
thought there were-
situation like fit it. It's just
Okay.
So many of his jokes were like that, where it's just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm needlessly going to be angry, but I'm going to include like a random little off comment like that.
I just wanted to say why that one was the best.
Thank you for
Okay.
Yeah.
that, Andrew,
No
because it
problems.
was all right, but all of the other ones were horrible.
Yep.
The product placement was bizarre. Because one of the worst was a double whammy of corporate product placement. The worst one-liner was after the
wait, one liner? Or are we talking about
the
product
worst
placement?
one-liner and
Oh.
and product placement,
Okay.
two of them, was just after the Giants fight. He's all dizzy and he sees a Mercedes van
Oh, yeah.
coming up and it's all blurry and he's like, is that my Uber?
Yeah.
And that's two fucking corporate sponsors in a terrible moment in the film, which was just
But that's
really
supposed
awful.
to be relatable.
Yeah.
we
I have
all
to say,
take.
how much did
Ubers.
they pay for that?
I didn't pick up on that. I just thought it was like an old kind of wacky van.
To me, I didn't really register
other
that.
Asher, rather. Every single product that you ever see in a film is there because the brand has paid for it.
But it was kind of blurry already. You'd think that if you're a brand,
Clearly a
you know-
Mercedes.
Yeah.
They might have paid less for it. So a lot of those other
Plus, Uber don't have their own cars. It's like people sign up with their own cars. It's not like Uber has like Uber branded, taxis. You understand what
Yeah.
Uber is, right? Do we need to pause this and explain
This
it?
episode was sponsored by Uber.
Yeah.
Go to uber.com/cinemafia
Cinemafia spoilers.
and you'll get a 404 error.
If you have a friend, you can get $5.
Andrew
just a friend.
Andrew
Yeah.
talked about how the lore was pretty interesting, and it was. He said, I was quite surprised that Andrew liked it, because I imagine you are familiar with the King Arthur legend, and specifically Merlin's heritage, because Merlin is a half demon. Merlin was, depending on your interpretation, either fathered by a king and a succubus of hell, or by a demon and a virgin human. A few other interpretations in between.
Well, can't be a virgin then.
Well, at the time.
You been found out, Asher.
Big old thing there. Well, because I thought that would have been really interesting if you have Merlin, who, if anyone is familiar enough with the Arthur legends, will know he is a half demon, and at first this is why he was cast out and why he has his powers. But he's a very interesting character because, God actually does give him revelation and foresight and stuff.
He is there to guide the chosen hero.
But he's of demonic origin, which is very complicated and cool, but they didn't touch that at all. And they've established that the half-demons in this world look like Hellboy, and Hellboy interacts with Merlin. And it would have been cool, if they'd be like, I'm actually a half-demon too, blah, blah, blah.
They could have put a one-liner in, like, so we both had tough parents, didn't we?
Right.
Could have been funny.
I feel like that would rely on too much background information. Like, I've never heard of that.
But okay, but another reason why that was very irritating for me was because Merlin was the one who used the holy water to seal the witch's head, and that wouldn't have been a thing. That wouldn't have been a thing because he can't handle holy water because he's half demon. Like. This is why it wasn't a 10 out of 10, boys. No.
There was actually a one-liner about Merlin. Like, after he had died and Hellboy was walking off, they were talking about old Gandalf as character.
They called him
like
Gandalf.
That. Yeah, that's quite funny. That
was...
wasn't the only Lord of the Rings reference. Actually, there was the Tolkien.
Wait a minute,
out.
Yeah.
But no, there was actually a scene when there was like a big crack into hell before he threw the head down there. Oh, no, when he threw the head down there,
You need to get the head.
Yeah, no. It reminded me of, throwing the ring into the Mount Doom.
Where it tracked the fall into the...
Yeah, exactly.
It could have been a motive. It could have been a nod
I'm not
to that.
commending it. I just think that may have been
Just to
cool
jump
back.
on what Ash has said about the themes not being explored, I also think just the general plot itself isn't explored. Like, we go right from, here's this Osiris organization, you're going to help them, go after giants, then 3 minutes later, the Osiris people who we've just met, like, there's no actual dramatic build up to it, we're just introduced to them, then they're betraying them, and then there's a psychic woman who you met as a kid, and she saved you, but then she's going to kill you, but then she's suddenly helping you out, and then in the next scene you're like, she's coming with us on this mission. She's the only person I can trust in this world. It's like 5 minutes ago you had no clue whether you could trust her or not.
I'm not finished talking about the terrible stuff. Also,
go back to why it was 5 out of 10.
Yeah. So it was 5 out of 10. I would have rated it higher. If a few other things, one of the small things was that at the end of the film where they show the cool battle, we're a team now, we can do cool stuff. Alice, the early 20-year-old, untrained, 14?
Fortune teller, I said.
Fortune teller, yes.
14, fucking
14.
hell.
She was 12. She was 12.
She was untrained,
Yeah,
and she was just taking down dudes, and she didn't have any ballistic armor.
Yeah, she said she
had no
suddenly
armor.
found some power because she's, I don't know, used
She's
to...
a psychic.
She's
It's
taking
bullshit
powers
because
on them.
Daimyo, who's actually got seriously dope superpowers, has a ballistic vest.
I wouldn't call...
But okay, whatever. You can judge it, but he has a ballistic vest, and she doesn't. She has nothing. She's just in her
The actors also form of her punches. I'm no expert, but they did not look professional. They looked terrible. It was like, ugh.
Yeah.
That scene at the end.
That
when
was
she
the
was
green screen stuff, right?
Yeah, the scene at the end when she was made out to be a real big badass, and they were raiding that factory. The
she's got
punches she was giving were like,
And she's
not even connecting.
She's got brass knuckles, and she's fighting with a pistol, hand-to-hand combat, and a pistol. Oh yeah.
But so there were these terrible things that we are unified on hating, but I loved the character design. I thought that the characters looked so cool. I didn't see any crazy monsters that I was like, that's dumb. I really liked their interpretation of Baba Yaga because she's not usually this really grotesque, fucked up thing. She's often a mix between that sort of motherly, cheerful thing and also very evil witch thing. But they led into that she was like this for a reason, and Hellboy had fucked her up in some way. I liked the chicken house. That was great. I liked at the end when these demonic entities come up.
Those monsters look cool.
They looked fucking cool. And there was one point, the one with all these arms and the floating fists. You laughed at that, Lewis, but I thought that was one of the coolest ones.
I think the ideas themselves are crap, where it's like, okay, I mean, I wouldn't have thought of that, but I didn't think they actually looked that good. The idea of some sort of pig warthog, the sidekick.
Oh, the pig warthog was kind of silly.
Yeah, it's like
They
that's
changed it.
that's a funny idea
The
because you
Scottish
could totally
accent.
imagine that being like very satanic looking and evil, but he just looked really ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Same with all the little CGI monsters; they looked way too fake gremlin like.
If I'm going to criticize another thing, Merlin had a Scottish accent for some reason.
I thought it was
even
Irish. Let's get to
Sorry,
the bottom
it
of
was.
this.
You're right. It was Irish.
Thank you.
I'm dumb,
Jesus.
but it should have been Welsh
difference?
because the King Arthur legends are from Wales, and Arthur was from Wales. And it's not like, of course, the old ancient Welsh would be the same as this, but it could be a nod in that direction of we understand the law. We're not just taking the names and fucking stuff
See,
up.
that would be a legitimate point if Wales existed. But I've been there and it's not there.
Another point to do with the costumes, I thought this film, not to use a loaded term, but I think it exploited a lot of gore. There's a lot of
was gonna say, I
gratuitous
love the
shots
gore.
of people being, having their face carved up,
Yeah,
heads
fantastic.
being busted open, people's bodies being all mangled, and
Say it again. I'm just saying that was why I also rated it 5 because I liked.
to me it went over the line of being like adding to this dark fantasy film, and it just became like, okay, this is what you're these are what you're using to get your clicks, this is what is making up the bulk of your appeal. It's meant to be like this crazy gratuitous evil film where people get mangled and twisted and cut up and everything, and it just happened so frequently it lost its effect. Like if there was like a few big moments where someone's body disintegrates or something, or gets their limbs pulled off, it would have had more effect. But I just saw it so frequently, like every 5 minutes, and then in certain sequences like every 3 seconds. It's just like, yep, I've seen this before, has no effect on me anymore.
Yeah,
Okay,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Other
everyone's
Asher, why don't you tell us about
your
your
turn.
rating?
Yeah, so I gave this film a 2.4 out of 10. And so I have to say, I really do agree with a lot of the points that Lewis has made, and also his rating scale about, 1.5 and 1 being like the bare minimum with maybe its structure not even completely coming together. But I did find the reason I've given it a 2.4 is because I found that some of the elements which Lewis was saying, like the one-liners and the silliness of it, I found that kind of contributed to my laughing. So I laughed quite a bit during this film, as everyone's aware.
So it became like a good bad film.
Yeah, I was laughing at how ridiculous it was. And on a similar note, I'm not a big fan of Marvel films, so I don't rate Marvel films very high. I actually enjoyed this more than I'd enjoy, I'd say, probably half of the Marvel films.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to make a bad point. Carry on.
No, genuinely.
Wait, I thought
because
you were going to be stupid.
No, because Marvel films, you know exactly what to expect, and they're really cookie cutter. This was, even though you're right, it had a lot of it was really uninspired in a lot of ways, and was cookie cutter in a lot of ways. It at least tried to be something different, and it tried to have its own unique flair, and that failed horribly. But the fact that it tried, I have to give it to it. Some of the things that I liked in particular were, as Asher said, the CG and the prosthetics, especially the prosthetics,
Prostheses.
the prostheses,
The protrusions.
Yeah. I thought all of the monster designs, especially near the end, I was really impressed by the monsters crawling out of hell and them wreaking havoc. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, obviously, I didn't think it was incredible, but that was a highlight of the film.
I'd have a caveat that you might agree with. The gremlins, the goblins, and
Yeah,
stuff.
I did
They were
like
silly.
those.
They were dumb.
Those were silly, but
Yeah.
the ones near the end where they were actually kind of really exploiting
The demons.
the body horror kind of aspect of it. The demons. That was all really cool. What else did I like? I mean, yeah, it was essentially, I liked that. I liked kind of the ideas and some of the monster design, and I thought a lot of it was kind of fun to laugh at what they were trying to go for.
You really like this a lot for a 2.4.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, I'm covering what I liked about it and what gave it a 2.4 as opposed to a 1.5, which I would have given it if it was Marvel trying to do this, which I can imagine what Marvel would have tried to do if they made a film in this vein. The reasons why I gave it a 2.4 was because I think it failed as a film. If you think about all of the editing, all of the... Okay, so one of the things that took me out of the film the most was all of the flashbacks that would happen right in the middle of a scene, and then you'd be gone for a couple of minutes, and then you'd come right back into that scene and be expected just to continue. I mean, yeah, that really bothered me. That really took me out of it. I feel like, the editing was really frantic. I'm actually quite surprised that you guys rated the start of the film so highly with the King Arthur stuff, because I actually found that was immediately me noticing the editing shots that they had, sorry, not the editing, sorry, the shots that they had in the camera work of moving from one character's face to really quickly and then to another character's face, and then it kind of slows down. I thought that was it was like I was watching a trailer. It didn't feel like a real scene.
It was just an introduction. It was just quickly.
No,
boom,
but
boom, boom, boom,
that
here's the
continued
law. It
throughout
was
the
a
film.
prologue.
Is my point. Yeah, no, even when they were having conversations later on in the film, they were completely, cutting really close up and then doing these long kind of moving shots, and then also the action scenes, even though I wouldn't be so harsh on the giant scene, I thought that was like, all right, it was one of the better
I
scenes.
thought the
Yeah.
giant scene was terrible. That had
Yeah.
the worst editing to me because that was and not only the green screens, but that was like the camera like panning like full
Yeah.
360 degrees from one giant to the other. I thought it looked absolutely terrible.
100%. I agree with you. Like, even though I liked the other aspects of that scene, I thought that the floating camera, like going really quickly and then slowing down as it kind of zoomed up near Hellboy and then kind
Following
of
him,
going 360 and
getting
everything.
catapulted.
Yeah, I thought that was a real, I guess a good example of how bad CG, kind of camera work can be done in cinematography. And that I thought the acting was just generally really poor, and actually the character arcs as well, especially the what was the name of the character? Alice, Sasha Grey. I thought her character
Sasha
was
Lane. That was
Yeah.
a joke. Her name's not Sasha Grey.
Sasha Grey is
Oh,
she's
okay.
retired now, but look, let's just say she's done some work.
Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry. You can blame Asher for that.
That was a bad joke at the beginning I shouldn't have made.
Yeah, well, anyway, Alice's character, I felt like, other than her, meager punches, there was just nothing to it. Like, I don't know, it did really bother me just because there was no payoff, and you're expected again to, she has a gun to him, and then, 3 seconds later, he's saying, oh, I trust you more than anyone else, and she has to come with me. And
She's
then
like,
she
me
constantly,
too.
Yeah, exactly. She just felt like a novelty character. And then the other guy, what's
Daimyo.
his name? Yeah, the Daniel Diamond. No,
Ben
Daimyo.
Daimyo.
Yeah, again, he was like, everything was just really cliche, more than the one-liners. Because as I said, I kind of enjoyed the one-liners, but I just felt that the characters themselves were just really cliche, and there was nothing inventive about it. Also, no Ron Perlman. That was a real shame.
Sure, yeah.
I would
Ron
have liked
Perlman
it
was
if
a
Ron
very-
Perlman came back. He was fantastic.
Very good Hellboy.
Yeah.
Was it a
Much better
different
than David
Hellboy?
Harbour.
I thought they looked very similar. I
Oh,
haven't
no.
seen.
So, Ron
What,
Perlman,
you can't tell the difference
they did a
between
fantastic...
different looking Hellboys?
They did a
They
fantastic
all look
design.
the same to you?
Yeah, sorry.
They did a fantastic job making them look the same, but Ron Perlman's acting was just different, and he
Yeah.
really suited that character more.
Because I was going to say,
think.
I saw
The
the
original Hellboy was
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, because I saw the original Hellboy, and it's like, is this the same guy they brought back like 15 years later? Because I don't remember him being this detestable. you
Yeah,
know?
no, it was David Harbour
Yeah.
from Stranger Things.
I got to just say, one thing I also didn't really like was, with superheroes, is meant to be like the idea is they have like some sort of super strength. So it's like, okay, they're going to be able to face physical issues.
Hellboy's not a superhero, in my opinion.
Well, you know what I
yeah.
mean. Like, like I think he would actually be under the term of superhero because he's an anti-hero.
Just call him a mutant.
Yeah, he's a superhero,
He
like
is
the
actually a
Punisher's a superhero,
Yeah. And my point is like, so the writer's like, okay, well, if he's strong, then what's actually going to be the issue with his character? It's like, oh, we go for the actual internal difficulties, and his is meant to be, oh, should I just be this guy who, people are like afraid of me when I walk around, or should I actually embrace, hanging out with this demon queen and take over the world? And I didn't like how that was handled because it's like he's fighting her, then like she goes to him in like some sort of mind, he's in like a trance and she talks to him and she's basically just saying for a few, like maybe a minute, oh, you should come to the dark side, blah, blah, blah. And then from that point on, he's like, oh, you know what? Maybe humans shouldn't be mean to the demons. Have you ever thought about that, Dad?
Yeah, that was
And-
really contrived.
And then at the
yeah.
very end, where it's like, oh, if I take the sword, I'm going to become evil. That felt like it was in the wrong order, where it's like, I'm going to take the sword. No, I know I'll be evil if I take it. But then he ends up taking it, and then he's actually like starts being evil. He's his horns grow up. He's not even himself. He's like actually snarling, and actually his voice resembles like an actual monster. And he's actually about to embrace the like demon queen. And then it's his father in that terrible CGI that comes out and says, stop whining. It just felt.
Stop being a whiny
It just-
little boy.
Yeah, it felt like his internal conflict was just so rushed. They didn't put any actual effort into it. It was just like, well, we've got to, he's got some cool moves. I didn't even think his actual acting in the action scenes itself was, that good. But in theory, he has some cool moves. He's got some, a cool gun. Oh, what's the internal conflict? We'll just throw this in there. And I couldn't buy into that either.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, again, like Hellboy is like a character from the comics, so they couldn't really try and make it that different or try and do that much with it, just because it's he's a figure from the serialized kind of comic book series. Or
It's a
whatever you
very
call it.
popular series, though,
But-
so I wouldn't be surprised if
Yeah.
they actually do give him quite a bit of depth in the original comics.
Yeah, I think they do, but I was more just commenting on the fact that they can't change him significantly by the end of the film. But I do agree that there would have been much better ways to address that and to create a character arc that didn't differ significantly by the end of it, so that it would have stayed in line with the comics. Yeah, it has been a long time since I've seen the original films, but I do remember liking them. And
I feel like there was a way better cast of supporting characters in the original as well.
Yeah, there were some interesting like fish people. I know there was like a sidekick, whatever.
Yeah.
He was really cool.
I liked the elf-like race. They were quite
Yeah,
sinister.
yeah.
The main villain was pretty good. That
But
male elf.
what that Hellboy original 1 and 2 didn't really have was this grand hell sort of lore, this grand lore. It was all kind of cyberpunk, strange. You didn't really. It was a world where creatures were kind of way more out.
Sorry,
and about.
wait, you're saying this was cyberpunk?
So the original 1 and 2 were a little bit cyberpunk
Okay,
with
yeah, I
this
thought you were
sort
saying
of
this one was
underworld.
cyberpunk, and I didn't get
of-
that vibe, yeah.
No, the underworld of monsters, and we didn't really see that in this world. There were monsters that lived in the world and were normal people, but were just marginalized. We didn't see that when we could have, because that was kind of
you're right.
what
It was
his
quite black
point
and white,
was.
wasn't it?
Yeah,
It was like Hellboy was the only
Yeah.
monster with good characteristics.
Humanizing thing. Whereas in the world, he supposedly in the Hellboy universe, there are more people like him, or at least not like him, but who are marginalized.
And actually, I feel like if we saw some more of that, then that would have given the character arc that they did for Hellboy more credence.
Absolutely.
Like if we actually had reason to believe that monsters weren't just, other than Hellboy, weren't just out to kill as many humans as they can, because all we've seen are the giants and then the Queen and Baba Yaga and all these characters. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another little, quick little issue. This might just be to do with me not having, seen the original Hellboy films in, the recent few years or keeping up with the comics. But I felt like this iteration of the film with Hellboy, it's very reactionary, as opposed to like we don't need to see like an extended origin story, but it's like this feels like if this was a TV show, this is like the season finale where it's like, you're meant to be bringing in the end of times and there's this demon queen and she's summoning a massive army and she's actually going to use you to take over the world. I guess I would have appreciated it more if the start of the film wasn't, we're right into the thick of it. I would have liked to see a bit more exposition and building up this world before we then get into the stuff, because it felt like, okay, this is a reboot of the series. We're immediately right in the deep end. It's the end of times. It's the apocalypse. Everyone's dying. Everyone's, going through all this emotional turmoil. It just felt like, I don't know. Maybe that's just my personal feelings.
I disagree. I think more exposition would really detract from the film, because it was actually, as I said, the exposition, all the flashbacks and all the context that it was given to the different character motivations, which really detracted from the parts of the film that I actually did enjoy. I feel like if they just put us into this universe and they didn't have to try and justify, this is where Hellboy came from, this is why he feels so, who's my real dad or something like that. I feel like if they just put us in a situation and then told a story like, a day in the life of Hellboy, that would have been much better. However, I feel like for the grand scope that it was going for, maybe this film would have been better suited as like a Netflix miniseries where it had more room to kind of go into the background if it wanted to do that.
I'm caveating my point by saying that I don't think if there was more exposition, given the track record of the writers, that it would have been better. I'm saying I would have liked more good exposition, because, I have my own ideas about how they could have expanded the character. Like, I have no idea about the actual character in comics, but it's like they could have added this to his backstory. That would have made it more interesting. But yeah, if they actually did add more exposition, I don't trust that the writers would have made it any more interesting than what they already gave us. It's just like, ideally, more good exposition, because they have some bad exposition, then some good. I would have appreciated that.
If by good exposition you mean sort of exploring the world's lore and these sort of supernatural creatures with more cemented,
Yeah, 'cause I guess
realistic
I
tie
didn't
downs to
like-
the real world and real lore, then
Yeah,
I'd
like the
agree.
actual flashback of like the people where it's like, how's Hellboy being born? It's like, this occultic Nazi thing. Like, that's really interesting.
It was never actually established why his father didn't shoot him. He just decided not to. It was never ever explained.
And also, how about some more conversations where people aren't just talking at Hellboy and he's stuffing his face full of pizza, or he just says some one-liner and then walks off. Like, I feel like there were no genuine conversations throughout
the
the entire
dialogue
film,
felt very forced. Yeah.
And if there was a conversation, then it was always centered around, like when he met up with, what's her name, Alice or
Alice.
whatever.
There was a genuine conversation
no,
between his
but-
father and him.
but-
That was
but-
at the start where he was filing his horns.
No, but
That was a very
again, that
genuine
was his father
conversation.
talking to him, I feel like. It wasn't actually him responding, and it didn't establish the relationship very well,
There was someone who cared for him. It did establish the relationship. I was going to agree with you when you said it was just him talking at him.
You
I was like,
fucked
yeah,
up.
it was talking
You
at him.
fucked up.
But it showed like here he was physically caring for his son.
I feel like the fact that he's like, oh, you're handsome, and he's acting so normal, even though the situation is like, they're like part of some like, secret underground organization.
He has a beautiful face.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. It was like, that's a bit too on the nose. Like, hey, we're watching a film. These characters, they're doing these crazy escapades, but look at them. They're acting like everything's normal. To me, that was a bit like, it sort of brought that scene down. Like, otherwise, if it was like an actual going for a serious, like, hey, son, you've been through some stuff. Let me, file your horns. I know exactly what you're going through because I've raised you since you're a demon pup. That sort of stuff. It would have had more impact. For me, they were too on the nose with, let's have some little cutesy, cartoony superhero moments.
He never showed him much sympathy, did he? He was never very sympathetic to his son.
Well, that's
whatsoever.
the thing. Yeah, that's why I found it difficult, at least, to believe that the relationship was as close as it was, for being instrumental to, at the end of the film, Hellboy deciding to, fight for humans as opposed to just embrace his demon.
That was my issue with us, like, jumping over the origins. Like, okay, we see the origins in this very cheesy action scene where they're, killing all these occultic Nazis, and then, we see Hellboy being born, then it's like, jump forward 40, 50 years, and, Hellboy's already established as part of this organization, his dad's running it. If we'd actually seen a bit more of Hellboy growing up and, like, how these characters all came together and the story of, how these Nazis and the occultic got involved with demons and everything, I would have had way more attachment to the characters. And that's what I was saying, where it's like, Alice, we're introduced to her, we're told, oh yeah, you saved her when you were young. We do see like a bit of a flashback of that. And even then I thought the acting was very cheesy, especially from Hellboy himself with, this demon being all weak and, I'm going to steal the child, I'm going to pretend to be the child.
Changeling, not a demon. But yes.
Well, you know. Yeah,
technically.
Yeah.
Fair, yeah.
And as I said, and then like, she's, I'm actually going to, maybe I should kill you, then I'm not, and then I'm on this big mission with you, giving up my life as a fortune teller to just run away with you and help you through all this stuff. It just felt like there were no concrete characters. They were changing their personalities like every 5 minutes for whatever the plot decided, because like, we've got to have a team of characters to support Hellboy, so make them a bit quirky, do this little thing, then next, I'm different, I'm going to support you, Hellboy.
That comes back to what you were saying before about the giant hunters, how they were like being all friendly and everything, and then all of a sudden, let's kill Hellboy,
there's no payoff to that, because it's like, we fought alongside your father, and it's like, it's believable where it's like, we've hunted these giants for ages, but now there's too many, we need your help, we've fought alongside your father, so we know we can trust you, but then there's suddenly, we're going to get you because you're evil, we should have killed you, years ago.
For some reason, they knew that, it must have been their seer who knew that he was going to be the King of England. That's what they were talking about. They said, haha, like we'd ever let you take the English throne when they were murdering Hellboy. And that was at a point where we were like, what? Why did they even say that? But that eventually became apparent because, spoiler alert, he is descended from King Arthur himself. Yes, very distantly descended. So obviously he has the rights to the English throne.
But I feel like their reasons for killing him because of that fact, were never fully explored or justified.
Exactly. That was stupid. And I wanted to criticize that part because I was like getting in on the criticism jam when you guys this film was anti-English. That's right. It was an anti-English film. And you could tell it was because it was American. And that's besides that, let me tell you why it was anti-English. Hellboy rocks up in England, he goes to this country club looking place. Everyone there is acting really smarmy. You've got American actors depicting high-class British gentlemen. Oh, top of the morning to there, good sir. That sort of stuff.
The old boys club.
And Hellboy's a rootin' tootin' good old red-blooded American cowboy who
I didn't come here for a history
I know. I'm here to do some real man's work. Oh, no, you see, what we do is based on tradition, because we here in England only care about fucking tradition, which is why we hunt giants with spears, even though that's a ridiculous idea. They would never hunt these fucking giants with spears.
Electric spears.
Even though it's tradition, because they literally killed people. They would bring out the big guns for these giants because they've literally killed people.
I would like to point out, I have read some sagas, I think it might have been like Gregory of Monmouth or some people like that, where it's like they take actual English history, then they throw in a bunch of myth. There have been some, who actually originated the idea of, King Arthur and that sort of, and that's what evolved into the story of King Arthur and, the Sword and the Stone and Merlin. There were ideas that England, like the actual, UK itself used to be, inhabited by giants. So that was like another little thing where it's like, okay, if they're actually going to stay in like this, the mixing purely of the medieval with like the modern world, like medieval like ideas in the modern world with demons, that's a very cool concept. And like when I was like, okay, I can't wait to see, I can't wait to see the giants. And we got like, this party of people, even though I was like, okay, it's stupid they've just betrayed Hellboy, but it's like, okay, so now we're in this world where there are like, giants, medieval knights, demons as well. How's this going to, all mesh in? But then that bloody Alice comes along in a fucking like van. And then we're into like the, like, you know what I mean? It was like, this is a cool, even like the setting where it's like, green pastures, these mountains, the trees, the giants. And then it's like, oh, we're in like, apartment buildings.
England's green and pleasant land.
Yeah. And I guess it just became much more industrial in setting. That's also what I didn't like. I did like when we went back to like Merlin's cave and went into like the dark sort of stuff. When it went too dark and like, what's her name? Baba something?
Baba Yaga.
Baba Yaga.
Yeah. I thought those sort of like more demonic settings, I didn't really appreciate them. Like even the cathedral, I thought it wasn't as like thematic as it could have been. I think they could have made it look way more grand.
Did you just call St. Paul's Cathedral a demonic setting?
Well, you know what I mean, because it's like the idea of like, heaven and hell. It's like they're fighting in a cathedral. There's meant to be like they're not going hard on it, but there's meant to be the idea of, the Christ, the idea of life, and that's where, the idea of the demons originate from, because they're mostly like in their creation is juxtaposed to the idea of, Christian values. So that's the reason why they're in like a big cathedral, because it's like, oh, this is where it all started, heaven and hell, and now the demons are fighting in one of, a godly created home.
Yeah,
that's
by
how
the way, King Arthur was in the basement of the cathedral.
Yeah.
How did they not know that?
Just
Well,
literally.
she did. She said she planned that because that's why they did like the
They
really
never
cheesy.
knew.
Yeah, like everything cracks. They never knew until now. So she knew. So
Literally
Oh, yeah,
right
it's like
below the floor.
The
Yeah.
Notre Dame Cathedral burns down, and in the remnants we see King Arthur.
No,
or something
it's like no, you idiot.
King Arthur, he
The
made it to France.
It'd be what's his name? The Hunchback. What's his actual name?
Quasimodo.
Yeah, Quasimodo. That would be you had a chance to use
That
that,
would be
but you
amazing.
didn't.
Oh, I'm
Like
sorry.
the hidden
That is
remains of
superior.
Joan of Arc would be cool to bury in the Notre Dame.
Yeah. And we just want to say
Actually-
that all
Ashes.
proceedings from this episode are going towards Notre Dame.
Yeah, did you know Notre Dame was built upon ruins, which were built upon ruins? There's like 3 levels of like really ancient
Yeah,
stuff.
Native American burial grounds. That's why it burnt down.
And that's why it's holy. Yeah, that's not right.
Yeah, they're getting us used getting us used to the idea of religious buildings burning and being torn and being
Crumbling
destroyed.
down.
St. Paul's Cathedral. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Yeah, you're next.
This is quickly becoming a conspiracy theory podcast, so I'd like to ground us again just by jumping on something that Lewis was saying about the Baba Yaga scene, because I thought that was all right. But the thing I liked most about it was I actually really liked the CG of. I know that this is like this, kind of age-old mythology about the house with the chicken legs.
Yeah.
But I liked the way it was portrayed, and I kind of liked the scene of Hellboy going down the elevator and then falling down into this, this misty
Yeah, I
area.
like that too.
That reminded me a wee bit of Silent Hill 2. And obviously, I don't think that they were explicitly, referencing it. But I think that, I just like the aesthetic of him falling into this misty kind of, foresty area. And he was obviously in an other world, kind of an other dimension or something like that.
He
You are
refers to it
just,
as another
you're
dimension.
just so positive for your rating.
Well, no, I'm trying to I'm trying to find things that I do like about it, because as I said, the fundamental parts of what makes any film a good film were completely lacking in this film. There were elements of it, as I said, but just, as I said, the editing, the cinematography, the acting, the writing, the character arcs, all of that was trash.
Okay.
You know what, Asher? Other Asher. Let me take away a little bit more faith, even if you have any left.
Yeah.
In the helicopter scene, when they all have their headsets on and their microphones, because you have to have that on to communicate in a helicopter, because you speak into your mic and people can hear you. Hellboy takes his off.
Like we're doing right now.
Yeah, he takes his off and continues having a conversation with them. He's like lying at the back of the helicopter, and they're like, "Yeah, Hellboy," and he's like, "Yeah."
Excuse me, Asher, but that's because of his demonic senses.
Yeah,
his
but no,
demonic
not
senses
just
enable
that.
him to hear the raucous din of the helicopter.
Okay, so did Daimyo and Alice also have demonic senses?
They were wearing headsets.
Yeah, but when Hellboy wasn't wearing a headset and was talking to them, they should have
He has a
gone.
big boy voice.
Daimyo, the pilot, should have gone, "Excuse me, Hellboy, can you please put your headset on? It's for safety
I also
and
didn't like
communication."
when he had his headset on. He was listening to music, even though it's clearly not like headphones. It was literally like had a mic and everything. Then when he takes them off, the sound
music
stops.
stops, yeah.
like we could already hear it when he's got them on. But then
Are you
when
serious?
How did
Yes,
he even
they took
pass
them off.
pilot
God.
school?
Yeah, and then it's
this
like
is
when you take them
horrible.
off and his head isn't between the actual like the earmuffs of the headphones. You should be able to hear them louder. But no, it turned off.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
So look,
Is
we've
the head
been,
of the church.
we've been going
Checkmate,
for we've gone for
Hollywood.
48 minutes. We should really move really heavily now with
one-
a forethought into the aspersions.
One more thing I would like to say though.
Oh, okay. Thanks,
This
other Asher.
comedic scene, unintentional. There was a scene. I think it was with the warthog or whatever it was. But Hellboy was addressing him. He was like standing in front of him, and there was one scene where he had tiny little Donald Trump hands, and like his hands relative to his body size were tiny. And then it cuts to the next shot, and then he has these massive CG hands, and you can tell the difference because the warthog was there, and like you can kind of compare it. I think
So
his
yeah,
hands were there as
swiftly
well.
Wow, it's
moving
like
on.
I was
It was
reading-
pretty funny.
So thanks for
Swiftly
that. little
moving
comment.
on.
Quickly moving on.
Despite other Ash's asinine contribution,
Yeah.
I can believe that he rated it 2.4. Lewis, you're going to think, oh, this is a bit hilarious.
I
Asher
know
thinks
that you're
it's
going to
me.
start accusing me because you accuse me literally every episode.
Lewis, I think there's room for you to have all of the same
Asher,
criticisms of
look,
this film.
You've fucked
and
up
give it
every
a
other time you
3.5.
thought it's me. Please, just for once, just for the sake of it, do not assume it's me because I swear to fucking God, it is not me. And I'm actually getting so fucking mad that you always accuse me. And okay, if this happened like maybe if you'd done this 3 times, it'd be like, oh, Lewis, you're getting a bit defensive. But no, you've literally done this every single fucking episode.
Wallace, you're getting a bit defensive.
Yes,
Okay, you
I
know
have
what?
reason to. He always accuses
I'm
me.
on Lewis's
Other
side
Asher,
because-
I'm going to pull your microphone out.
Oh.
Yeah, Lewis, you've
Yank.
convinced me.
Oh, good.
Yeah, okay, it's not you then. It's probably Andrew. He,
I have
he
to
didn't
say-
like this film as much as he did.
Whoa. No. I think it's Lewis or Asher. One of these other Asher, that is. Okay.
But like, would he?
And obviously the reason why I think we should band together is because
we
we've
have-
got similar
Yeah,
ratings.
yeah. But
So-
you know what, Andrew, you've bitten me before when we were a team and I voted for Lewis or someone else,
Yep.
and it was you.
Yeah, well,
Didn't we say we can't use meta knowledge like that though? We have to rate it based on
not-
our.
Didn't I
we
say I would
can't.
We
pull
can-
your fucking microphone out?
we can use it, but we shouldn't base our entire
Yeah.
points on it. Because I would like to say, like, the 5 out of 10, this is getting meta, but I can believe that Asher saw some of those things that I hated and was like, oh, this is fun. It's sort of cheesy fun. So I can't imagine him giving it a 5 out of 10. Same with Andrew. The 4 out of 10 makes me believe, okay, there are issues that he could have disliked just like me, but not to the same extent. And then with you, and I feel like I always do this where I steel man everyone's positions because I could totally see, even though you've made a lot of positive points about the film, I could totally see you in your like weird rating system being like, even though it's all this good stuff, it's these like few things that I didn't like, and then like, oh, all this history of cinema that it doesn't fit into, and that's why it's this very low rating.
Oh yeah, no, totally. We discussed this before the podcast, but the rating that I gave was based on the rating system that we discussed. So I wasn't having a
which
weird
is
rating
some
system.
stupid rating system.
I
Just
have-
try to ignore.
It's
the
quite
listeners.
complex. I couldn't really follow it.
I do have to say though, I'm not suspicious of Lewis at all because I do really agree with all of his comments. And I can definitely see him giving it a 1.5 out of 10. Again, kind of based on meta knowledge. I can see Ash's cinema taste as being so poor as to give it a 5 out of 10.
God damn it.
So I really can believe that. I think that Andrew I think he's the Mafia because
Wouldn't you think I have poor cinema taste because I rated your favorite film of all
No, no, no.
time a 1
Okay.
out of 10,
And-
Phantom of the Paradise.
You know what?
Garbage.
You know what? Noting your reasons for why you rated that film a 1 out of 10 was because you didn't like the kind of hyper realistic kind of like all over the place elements.
Hyper-realistic?
Sorry, no, hyper realistic's the
It
wrong word.
was
Like kind of
Stupid
surrealistic.
and childish.
Okay, so
Ladies and gentlemen, the
surrealistic was what I was looking
Cinemafia
for.
podcast does not condone yelling at small, fragile people named Other Asher.
God.
yeah, but no, okay. My point was your criticism of Phantom of the Paradise was that there were inconsistencies and there were things that didn't make sense in the overarching story, and you thought it was trash because of that. I feel like these same criticisms apply to Hellboy. I feel like this film, like none of the individual points made sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think even though the writing was what I'd call bad, I don't think it was the actual plot. Like
Nothing was
Yeah, exactly.
inconsistent.
It's not like I could say, oh, the character was acting this way. Like it was actually more the characters themselves where it's like, sort of changing their attitudes. But like if you think about how the plot moved
their
along,
lines were stupid.
Yeah.
They were acting in silly ways.
There were some
sometimes,
conveniences where it's
but
like
it was
they're about to
there
kill
was a
Hellboy.
story and
Yeah.
it was going and it was moving.
Yeah.
But in Phantom of the Paradise, it was just like, what? What? This is pointless and stupid and dumb, and I hate it.
I do feel like some of the scenes in Hellboy were like that. Like I mean, even the scene when the chick got her thing in her neck. You know,
thorn.
Alice got a thorn on her neck, and so they had this big diversion where they went to this cave in the middle of nowhere.
found Merlin from
Found
1,000
Merlin,
years ago.
somehow.
Yeah.
Like all of that just felt like out of place. Like if this, evil witch has just suddenly, come out of exile, or she's been created again and she's wreaking havoc on the world. Like, why would they go and spend however long, doing this thing in the middle of nowhere, and then have to make their way all the way back to London to St. Paul's Cathedral and then address all of the stuff?
To me, that was because that was how the film set itself up. Like, it's stupid in design, but it's like, okay, so there's like this demon queen, you can separate her body, and then you're going to bring her back. That's why it's like, okay, we've already seen that. So I don't find it in these in-game physics, I don't find it too unrealistic, iridescent, that they could also find this wizard from 1,000 years ago, and he's immediately like, oh, yep, let me help you out, fam. I don't find that, given their...
Somehow, he knew what was going on in the world.
Yeah.
He said a line that that implied that he was aware of what was going on 300 years ago or so from Hellboy's time. I cannot remember it, but what he said, I remember it now. He was like, yes, Hellboy, your Arthur's great granddaughter had a child.
Oh, I thought you said
somehow
Arthur's granddaughter.
Somehow he knew that Arthur's great granddaughter had a child, even though she would have had to exist in the 1900s, and he has been asleep since 500.
But he is gifted with knowledge of foresight from God.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I rescind my comment about inconsistency, but my point still stands about the pacing and all of my other critiques about the film. And I just feel like Andrew's taste in cinema is, probably quite critical. And I feel like this was such a bad film, there's no way it could have gotten a 4
So
out of
that
10
means
for him.
you would have to accept my critical taste for Phantom of the Paradise being a 1 out of 10.
I can see the argument that you made, and I can see why you would consider it important. And yeah, it made sense, like your criticism, but my rating of Phantom of the Paradise, and I don't want to talk about this film too much, but that was based on something completely different than looking at the film in in all of its parts as opposed to a sum of its parts, if that makes sense. So yeah, I still think it is Andrew, just because
I think Asher is the Mafia. Asher is the Mafia.
Okay, what rating do you think I gave it then?
I think realistically you would have given this a 4.2.
Knowing that I hate superhero films and that I hate overblown CG.
I think that even without knowing that, I could see you liking this film a lot because you spoke so much about how you liked it. Way more than anyone else here.
Yeah.
Way more than even Asher, who liked it the most.
Because I felt the need to justify giving it more than a 1.5, which is...
What is the difference between a 1.5 and a 2.2?
I feel like there's a really big difference between that. Again, it's the fact that
I think
agree with
Asher
all
is
of
the
Lewis's...
Mafia, and he's playing this in a really interesting way. Where he's trying to use tactics that have never been used before on this show.
No, look, I think that Lewis's... My point is, Lewis's criticisms, he's already made them. He already made them at the start. Otherwise, I would have started out with all the what I thought was bad about the film. I agree with everything that Lewis said. The reason that I was talking about what I liked about the film was because I felt the need to add on to that and justify my giving it 0.9 more than Lewis did.
It would be easy to agree with everything Lewis said because he went first.
Yeah, I know. Okay,
now that doesn't mean anything, but it sure is nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fair point, but again, that doesn't mean anything, and I feel like, I mean, I don't know what I can say. What can you say if someone's gone before you? You can just be like, oh well, I agree with their points. Do I have to make a different point? No,
but you're a victim.
You could repeat the points because it's not, because I said so many things that it's like it's not necessary that you're going to remember all of them. So if you did repeat some of the criticisms, it would at least show that you did share them.
Like after you had finished talking, and then when you were talking,
I'm not saying that you didn't. Yeah. I'm just saying that is how you would show it.
Something in general. Yeah. Even though I believe Lewis to not be the Mafia at this point anymore, because I'm more convinced that it's other Asher. Lewis has been speaking a lot less this episode, way less.
Really? I feel like I've been jumping in.
I feel like he's been talking for ages.
I think he's been talking a little less than he would normally would.
Yeah, a little bit.
I thought that would imply that I am Mafia then, because you're saying...
Yeah, I just remarked that it was like kind of interesting.
It does also help that my throat is a bit hoarse from...
Right.
Not hoarse, just generally sore from talking.
Convenient excuse.
Yeah.
But I shouldn't say that because I don't think you're the Mafia.
Okay.
Asher hasn't been talking that much, but I can believe that that's just because he hasn't got much to say.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Is he scot-free? Like, Asher does this sometimes. Could Asher have thought this a 3?
No.
This is the thing, because he looks guilty as sin, but he always does that. Because
I was just like, I don't really know who to vote for, to be honest. But I was, when you guys were talking about the Merlin and the thing that he said that he had knowledge, blah, blah, blah. There was a point when Hellboy said a sentence to Merlin, which every single word was a word that Merlin would have had no knowledge of whatsoever, which was just total modern jargon.
Yeah.
And it would have, I don't know, it would in my vision of this film, Merlin just goes, what the fuck did you just say?
Forsooth, verily, what doth thou
Right?
speak?
Because he said blah, 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 pop culture, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And
What do any of those words mean?
Yeah, but
I could sure
Merlin
go for some
just
monster
carried on.
energy when my Uber gets here.
Yeah. Like God has
Hellboy,
given
hit a dab.
like God has given Merlin important knowledge, not knowledge about Netflix and stuff or whatever. But
Did he
it was a missed
make a
opportunity.
Netflix reference in it?
It was a sentence. I
There
can't
must
remember
have
what
been.
it was.
There were so many pop
Yeah.
culture.
It might not have been
references.
because movies don't necessarily want to promote Netflix.
Oh.
But
This guy said Netflix earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
Did I?
Yeah,
So
you
did I say?
mentioned how Hellboy would be good as like a 6-episode
Oh, yeah,
series.
no, yeah, I
and I
think-
totally agree with that. They would have had way more time to flesh everything out.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had like 6 1-hour installments
Yeah,
with
yeah.
just
It
like
would
a
be-
CG
it would be
budget.
cool.
Because
as
there are
a-
actually
as a
so many
show.
cool ideas. As I said, like, taking the the ideas of medieval, the aesthetic of that, putting it into the modern day with demons and, like the satanic, aesthetic as well. That's such a cool concept.
And
but
then
then we get this film.
Also, I feel like this film was like it had lots of individual events that didn't necessarily come together for one big story, but that would have worked for a 6-part series where one episode could have been the giant, slayers, and they could have gone more in depth about that, and that would have contributed towards the overall plot, but also been an episode in and of itself, Like, I probably still wouldn't have liked it that much, but I would have liked it more than in its current state,
Well, look, we're getting close. Well, we're at the 1 hour mark. I think we should just make some, maybe some closing remarks everyone has, and then we don't need to say exactly who we're voting for. We can leave it up to suspense. Just to remind Asher, because there are 4 of us, it needs to be a majority vote. So either 3 people for one person or 2 people for one person. Then the other 2 each voting for another person.
Very well.
Yep. So ideally,
Who are you most thinking, Lewis?
this is difficult because again, I've heard your points, and I feel like you're holding, like, I always feel this though. I feel like you could be holding back on your criticisms. I feel like you could easily just be like, oh God, it was so boring. The characters were shit. I hated the characters.
I don't sound like that.
I feel like you could easily just unload, and you gave this 4. I feel like you could have given this a 2 out of 10 because I feel like even just as a pure superhero action film, again, using the superhero term, interpret that however you want, anti-hero, whatever. I feel like it just wasn't even good to that extent. We didn't get any like really sick like battles. Like we got like the most battle atmosphere we got was when it's like all those demons, running all over the city. But then they cause havoc and then they're like sucked back in. Like the real actual like big battle at the end was between the demon queen and the war.
I was
and
actually
the
so
warthog.
disappointed that
Yeah,
Hellboy chopped
exactly.
her head off. I thought this is going to be a great movie when Hellboy goes full evil and
Yeah.
demons take over the
Yeah,
world.
I was like, there wasn't even any dumb fun that I feel like you can see, and I hate to make go meta, but like with Captain Marvel, I can totally see there's all these like crazy battles going on, like it's going, oh, we're up in like we're in like the space station, then we're up in goddamn space, we're in the sky, there's lasers and everything and explosions.
Spoiler alert, I haven't seen that yet.
I feel like there's more excuse to be like you know what, I'm turning my brain off, there's dumb fun there. So I feel like I am more suspicious of you, but I am sympathetic to your view, if it means anything, that Asher could be playing a mind game where it's like this was actually maybe even like a 0.4.
Can
that
I
sort of thing.
actually add to that criticism as well?
0.4.
I feel like he
I'm
could've.
thinking he rated it higher, and you're thinking you put it
Yeah, no,
0.4.
I understand why. I do think it is more likely he rated it higher, but it's like I wouldn't be surprised if he was like,
I
this
never
encapsulates.
considered that as
if
a
he was like,
possibility.
this encapsulates everything that is terrible about modern
Yeah.
Hollywood films. I thought Marvel was bad, but this was terrible. I was laughing the entire way.
No,
that is
Lewis's
possible.
criticism is completely fair. I walked into this film thinking that I would give it lesser than a 2.4 out of 10.
That's very
Like,
precise.
I'm sorry. No,
Yeah,
it's just the number I came to.
2.3.5.
Yeah, no, I came into it thinking I'd be giving it like a 1 or a 1.5 out of 10. And I feel like I gave my reasons where I was kind of, I still got some enjoyment out of it, even if it wasn't necessarily because of, what the film was going for. But I just found myself laughing at the film out of what they were trying to do and how much it fell apart, and how much more I enjoyed that experience as opposed to watching a cookie cutter film.
You enjoyed this film way too much.
No, but all of
You
the comments.
liked
Okay,
this film,
we should,
didn't you, Asher?
No, we shouldn't. Okay, we shouldn't be talking too much about what we were doing while we were watching the film. But every time I laughed, I feel like, or not every time I laughed, but a lot of the time I was laughing, I would also be saying something kind of like sardonic or like sarcastic about, oh yeah, yeah. And the way I was laughing was obviously in a sarcastic tone. But that's besides the point. Okay, going off what Lewis said, I feel like there's another point to make against Andrew, which is he gave it a 4 out of 10, but when he was asked to say what he liked about it, he liked the ideas, okay? If we're rating this as a film, we should be rating the execution. It doesn't matter if this has, like, blood magic and all of these cool D&D ideas and some sort of nerd shit that you follow. I don't know what that is.
I like nerd shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
but
like
I don't-
nerd shit, but that's just like, what if we make Ready Player One, where we get all this nerd shit together in one big movie? Yeah, look,
That's,
you know, Star Wars. Look, there's Star Wars. You have to give it a 10 out of 10 now. You know, like
That's
just
another
because-
good point. It feels like they had those concepts, but they didn't fully introduce, like, you know, explore them. And it's like, that's what my point was, where I keep going on, you know, the idea of the medieval and the satanic and the demonic in the modern day. And like this blood magic stuff, if they actually went in depth, like, you know, they tried to give their own like in-world explanations of how it worked. And, you know, if they actually explored, you know, what are Baba Ganoush's, whatever her name.
Baba Yaga.
Yeah, what are Baba Ganoush's like origins, that sort of stuff. I feel like that would have really got your engine revving.
Quick aside here. When the flashback occurred, when they were going for the lobster and he was taking out the Nazis.
lobster.
Yeah. That was
Forgot to
so
mention him, eh?
that was cheesy as hell.
I was thinking about that when you guys were like talking about the critical issues in terms of characters. I was thinking, boys, there's one character.
No, I was I
lobster.
like the lobster. Again, this is another point. Like I was laughing at him. I was just thinking this is so stupid, but it's,
That was the most self-aware scene.
Yeah.
That scene was totally self-aware.
I thought it was-
I think that
yeah.
scene was totally fine.
To me, it was
because-
literally only the ending scene where I got it. Because at the start, when they just show him and he's like, sorry to bust in on your little party Nazis, whatever lame line he says,
Yeah.
I was like, this is exactly the sort of cringy stuff they've been doing all movie long. But then at the end, where Hellboy's like fanboying, being like, I love you. And he's like, you know, it's okay. Your father wouldn't want you being a little baby down here. I was like, okay, I get what they're going for. He's meant to be cheesy, but it's like, it didn't really work because the entire film is so cheesy with all of its action. But that one idea with that guy, I was like, okay, I can excuse that.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Do you have any further defense to make? Because then we can move on to
and
Asher.
also Ash's point. Yeah, I want to see what he thinks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
who
was
was
just
my point?
I was going to make a quick joke, but I've forgotten what it was. So let's hear what.
Huzzah!
Yeah. So yeah, who are you thinking?
Who am I thinking? Oh, geez. Honestly, I understand why it could be interesting if Asher rated this lower, but 2.4.
Other Asher.
Other Asher.
Yeah.
Thank you, slave. And Lewis would have probably. I mean, but honestly, Andrew, as much as your opinion is close to mine, I just don't think that I have any friends in my rating of this film as actually that like okay to watch. I think that you guys really didn't like this film, and Andrew, I think that the blood magic, I think that was a very strange
Yeah,
thing
that's
you,
such a tiny little thing, to be honest. in the
hooked
actual-
onto.
No. Ideas are everything.
Yes, but like they didn't explore that idea at all. It's like,
To me, blood magic is already explored in my mind.
But
but that's outside of the film.
You.
That's
That's
outside
why
of the
I
film.
liked it.
But that's outside of the film. That's like you're not
Yeah.
rating the film
Okay,
on what
so
it's
Andrew,
done.
so say you go into Hellboy and then you sit down and it opens up and then all it is just blood.
Yeah, the Wikipedia entry on blood magic.
and it scrolls through a little bit.
Yeah,
And then
every
it's
five,
blank.
and like you're on the same like 5 lines for every 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
then they scroll.
But no, but-
Andrew's just like, this is a fucking
But
piece of work.
it's like an hour and 50 minutes, of blank screen. But at the beginning, there was blood magic. That's about a 2 out of 10, right?
No,
2 out of
That's
10.
my point
unfair,
about Ready
that's
Player One. You know,
unfair.
what if we make a film which has all these pop culture references? It has to be good.
That's
No.
unfair, guys. While I really appreciate that joke, the difference between that example and me here is that I love fantasy.
I love fantasy as well. I'm the Tolkien fanboy of this club.
Did you say Tolkien?
Tolkien, yeah.
Is that a?
It's a mixture between
Tolkien.
Tolkien and Tolkien.
That's so fucked
Oh,
up.
that's how I've always said it.
Yeah.
I
Wait,
realised that people
wait.
said it
Whoa,
differently.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Guys,
He's
pause the
Mafia.
podcast.
He's always said it.
How have you said it?
Tolkien.
Yeah, okay. So, but if you were to say the word Token,
Oh, I've never spelled it out as last
oh
name.
my!
So I would.
No.
I listen to the audiobooks, not the books.
So
okay?
actually, this is not what we're
You've
talking
just
about.
Been to the game arcade and you insert your into the machine.
What is
Or
it
you
called?
insert.
Token. When
Oh,
that little-
token. Yeah.
Yeah, but you said Token.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
what I heard. Like,
and then I thought you were doing an interesting joke
Oh
about.
no,
Yeah,
that's just
Tolkien.
how
Oh,
I've always,
I just fucked
I've
up.
always imagined J.R.R. Tolkien as being pronounced Tolkien for some reason.
Holy
No.
shit!
Is this a point to let
you know when you've heard a
Yes.
word so many times that you're like, oh god, this is actually.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I want to say Tolkien. Is that how you guys say it?
Tolkien or
Tolkien.
Tolkien, but you have to get the L.
It's
The
like
L
when I
is-
was a kid.
'Cause
I
you were
always
saying-
used to.
you were
I
saying-
say it Tolkien.
Yeah, because you were saying Tolkien, and it
Yeah,
wasn't like
Tolkien.
it wasn't like Tolkien. Like Tolkien, it was like Tolkien. It was like a long.
but without an L.
yeah,
Tolkien.
yeah,
Yeah, or
Tolkien.
Anyway,
Yeah, Yeah.
You're the token fantasy guy. No, we all like fantasy. Maybe you
Yeah,
two
yeah.
like it more than others.
Yeah, like I'm a casual fantasy
Like-
fan.
I can begin to defend myself in the sense that it didn't need to be extremely explained to me because the ideas that were depicted, however minimal that they were consistent with the knowledge that
Let
I
me
had.
play devil's advocate. That it was a vital part of her surviving. That the blood was sucked up into the tree,
Yep.
and that she took the blood back.
Yep.
That's
Yeah,
sort of
that
the
was a
core
cool
of it.
scene.
You
I have
just
to
stole
say.
what I was going to say in
Okay.
the sense that sort of other way of prolonging your life
Yeah.
in a very mystical sense is she put her life energy into this tree.
But what
this,
other-
and this isn't just any oak tree. This is an ancient oak tree.
But that's such a small part of the film.
It's a
Yeah.
powerful location.
Like, what other moments of, like, you know, displays of the use or the importance of blood magic were there in the film? Because I can think
Or
of
like
that.
other fantasy
Like,
tropes.
there
The-
was with
the needle.
Hellboy's own.
The needle.
That needle.
She used it to
No,
poison
but
their blood.
I feel like that was just
But
like
that was
a
from the
general
crown.
magic thing.
That's
Like,
different.
I have magic.
I
I'm
don't
just
think
gonna
that was
sit there.
necessarily
the
from-
crown didn't have any power without her, in my mind, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that's so indirect from the actual blood magic itself. Like, I took that as to be like an ancient crown that the queens are given. And like, when we saw the thorn come out of her, it wasn't like it was blood. It turned into like a snake. So it's like, you know, I could, like, if they
Yeah.
actually gave an
It
explanation
turned
between the
into
blood
a
magic and the...
leech.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Well,
No,
a
no,
little
no.
scaly thing.
It's not necessarily a leech. It was a black sludgy thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Its things had gone into
Like,
it.
to me, I wouldn't necessarily connect that to blood magic. I'd just be like, well, this is another little, you know, like
Magical thing.
like
Andrew-
royal instrument for this, you know,
Andrew-
demonic queen who happens to have blood magic.
Andrew, while I understand that specific, you know, the blood going to the tree and then being used is a cool blood magic thing, it doesn't make sense that Merlin would watch the blood seeping rather supernaturally and rapidly into the tree and not go, I think we should do something about that. He just went,
That's a very good
let's
point.
just
That is a good
dismember
point.
the body,
Yeah.
which
Merlin
is now...
is a knowledgeable man.
yeah.
He should
Yeah.
have known that this was like...
God damn it,
Yeah.
Merlin.
Yeah, but Andrew, you didn't address my point. What other moments were there? I guess you did, but
Sorry, I was
guess
just saying
yeah.
that Andrew, I think, thought of that
Yeah.
in the film, and that would have gone, that's really important. The blood's
Yeah.
going into it, and would have gone, why isn't Merlin saying anything? And I think that you're still...
I didn't go
Mafia.
to the extent why isn't Merlin saying anything, though that's a really good point. Why didn't they
Yeah.
just burn the tree down? Even though the tree is of important cultural
Yeah.
significance, even at that point in time, they probably just
Oh,
would've burned
Merlin
it
tried to
down.
take it down, but the council was like,
Yeah.
no, there's historical significance. We can't take this down, Merlin.
Back in
Yeah.
5,
People
10.
want
Yeah.
it, you know.
But
so-
let's put
protected.
aside the point of, you know, whether the thorn from her crown, whether that was meant to, whether it was implied that was actually directly related to blood magic or not. Was there another moment where you could say this was a bit of, you know, blood magic at work and it was clear and I enjoyed that, like in the film?
Or another fantasy trope that you liked.
Before I can say that, I can say something I really wanted to see with blood magic. Blood magic is most famous for location. And using it to find people,
Yeah.
and sensing people. That would have been cool. Getting a bit of Hellboy's blood and using it to find him. Big opportunity missed.
Yes.
Huge opportunity missed. But the it was literal blood bending. She literally, once she had obtained her full power, was able to force people down. That's blood magic.
To me, that
she
looks
could
sort of
manipulate
like
the blood in their
Excuse me,
body.
that looked
I'm
like
sorry.
more like telekinesis because we don't actually see, like, if it's blood magic, it's like, okay, that's the power, but I'm not actually seeing any like blood coming out. Like when I think of blood magic, I think like I'm actually going to see the blood in some way. It doesn't actually have to be attacking someone, but it's like coming out, like being summoned from the hand or something. I just see someone, you know, putting like, you know, using Star Wars force power to
It's
contort
about
someone's body.
manipulation of the body.
I feel like if
I
you
guess
were
to me that
making-
doesn't come across as blood
If you were
magic
making
itself.
that point, I feel like they should have been more clear that
Yeah.
that was blood magic. Just because I assume, even just the thorn from the crown, I assume that was just some
It was
magical power.
it was clear to
you know?
me. It was clear to me
No,
that it was blood magic.
But did they ever?
She is a blood mage.
Yeah, but
that
it was-
is always
but you had-
established. Stop trying to pin this bullshit
Hey,
on
guys,
it
me.
was clear
guys,
to you because
guys.
you have this history with blood magic
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything
Guys,
like that.
guys,
But to me,
guys.
you know, even someone who
Guys.
knows stuff about
What do you mean?
fantasy-
Of course it was clear to
Guys.
you. Of course it was clear to you
Guys.
because it's been established that she's an ancient and powerful blood mage.
Guys. Did you guys know that in the TV series Misfits,
Oh, yeah.
there was a person whose power was
I
Yes.
did
Ah,
know
yeah.
that.
Isn't that just fucking wild?
That was cool.
He
And
would-
actually, in
people would eat
Avatar,
yogurt, and he'd be able to kill them.
And he'd be like, "You had milk today, didn't you?" Shit like,
So
yeah.
I'm partial to her being a blood mage and can manipulate the body, however, without killing them and
or
manipulating
she's a
them.
That's literally the
waterbender,
case.
and
Use
she
your
has
microphone.
learned from that lady in the Fire Nation. For all my peeps who have seen Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
But yeah, I digress.
Yeah.
I guess I understand-
basically, I think
Use
that
your
you were
fucking
trying to jump-
microphone.
You're right. I was leaning back heavily before because I
Sorry,
was shouting
listeners,
a lot.
we've had to do some
Hey,
magic for
I
that.
was doing okay.
Yeah.
I'll have you know, I've been
Go
very
on, go on,
controlled.
go on.
I think Asher, other Asher then, was sensing blood in the water, so to speak.
Haha.
And was using that as a brilliant opportunity to continue to put the pressure on Andrew, even though I've defended myself on why I thought
Okay,
the blood
I'm gonna
magic was fine.
I'm gonna go again then. Okay, blood magic aside, say that they did that perfectly. That doesn't make a 4 out of 10. Like maybe that if you really like the idea of blood magic and if they communicated it really well, which I don't think that they did, but if your argument holds that they did, then you have to give other points and other examples of these fantasy tropes and these ideas that you kept talking about being communicated and executed really well in the film. And I feel like the film just really lacked. You know, maybe you're right. The blood magic was okay, but everything else, like, what are some examples of things? that
There
you thought
were
just
Just before
ideas
Andrew
in the
starts-
film that were communicated that were fantasy based.
Just before Andrew finishes, I think this should be the last little exchange before I think we should move on to Asher because I don't think he's really given his thoughts on exactly who he's partial
Oh.
to, and then
and
we should
then we
move
should
to voting.
vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Andrew, you just want to close up your exchange here with
Sure,
other Asher.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were plenty of ideas in the film that were fantasy based. There was a giant hunting club in England. And as Lewis said, giants have existed in England. That's something consistent with previous existing fantasy knowledge, right? There you go. That's a cool.
No, but that
I liked
wasn't
that.
executed
It
very
was-
well,
It was
though.
stupid that they hunt with spears because in reality they would use guns if they're killing people or whatever other means that they have. But that idea was there.
But the fact that there was an idea there doesn't give it a 4 out of 10. If it executed it really well and it was a cool idea, then yes, that makes it a good film. But if it was just the idea, then they're just like, oh, let's just include
Guys,
as many of
There
these.
was no need for execution.
In every film, every
there
film has
wasn't.
to
There was,
execute its
there was
idea as well.
actually no need for execution in those places because it was just statements. It was like, there is a giant hunting club in England.
That's why it's bad.
Gotcha.
That's why it was a
I
bad
get
film.
ya. I get
Because
that's
it kept-
all.
it
That's
just
all
said
that.
things.
That's all that I needed.
Ladies and
But
gentlemen,
that
I
make it
rate
a
this
good
film.
film.
That's all that I needed. 4 out of 10.
I
But
guess
then
not.
you have bad taste.
Guys, ladies and
okay,
gentlemen,
let's leave it there.
what you have witnessed today, if other Asher and Andrew, if either of them are not the Mafia, what you've just witnessed today is the end of a beautiful friendship.
It's a total mind fuck.
Total mindfuck. They're going to realize that actually they don't like one another.
I just think it's
and-
so clear that he's just latching onto this idea that there were fantasy tropes, there were cool ideas in it. Oh, it's a 4 out of 10.
you're-
That's important
no, no,
to
no, no, no.
me.
Because he wouldn't give it a 0 out of 10. I feel like he gave it a 2 out of 10.
Okay. Final freak out. You're allowed to respond.
That's it for me. I
Okay.
just said
Yeah.
that's important.
We've
for
come
me.
to an
Okay.
impasse in our friendship.
These boys have said quite enough. Asher, just
Yes.
give
Sure.
your own little
So
final.
Asher will be voting for Andrew. Sorry, other Asher will be voting for Andrew.
We don't have to make it clear, but yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah, but he's trying to
Andrew
figure it
will
out.
be voting for other Asher.
Asher, yeah.
I don't know who Lewis is going to be voting for. I haven't kept track. That's okay.
That can be a surprise.
I'm not going to say who I'm going to vote for. I'll say who I'm suspicious
Suspense,
of.
suspense.
I am suspicious of.
Don't
Asher,
be sucked in
of
just
other
because he
Asher.
rated this film similarly to you.
I am suspicious of other Asher and of Andrew. And I'm not going to say who I'm going to vote for because it's kind of.
I'm gonna
I
say
think
one last thing.
I
Can you
think he's
imagine?
going-
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, can you imagine me giving this film a 2-score difference than what I already gave? Because obviously I know myself, and me saying this about myself is just no evidence. But come on, could I give this a film like a 4 out of 10 or a 0 out of 0.4?
Zero
or
point
I
whatever?
four.
gave this film a 4 out of 10. So
All right.
you could too.
Ladies and
Mafia.
gentlemen, we should be voting about now.
Let's
have already
write down
voted.
our votes. Let's write down the names of the people that we think it is.
The name, not the names. You can't write
The
two,
name.
Asher.
Oh no, actually, if I write everyone's name, then I have to pick the Mafia. I would have picked the Mafia no matter what.
So just a reminder, it has to be a majority decision
And
for the Mafia.
One more
This is
thing.
Lewis or Asher.
What,
I'm
one
gonna
more,
be-
one more thing, guys. Statistically, if you pick me, that's only a 1 in 4 chance of actually picking the right Mafia. So just think about it, probability-wise. Okay.
That's a good point. Okay.
I heard someone. It's kind of a digression, but they made a terrible point. There was some suspicious belief they had, and someone explain to them that no, like it's a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
It's insignificant, and they were like, "That's good."
Yeah.
50.
It's like
good.
Another
pretty good,
Another quick aside. It's like it's like Mike Tyson is going up against Jimmy from down the street. There's two of them. There's a 50-50 chance that Jimmy down the street can win. There's
Yeah.
two of them. He has a chance.
That was a gag that I gave before.
Yeah.
Just
well,
I think I concreted it and Lewis fucked it. And ladies and
I-
gentlemen, we should vote.
Okay, who would like to drop the first name they've voted
I
for?
voted for Andrew.
I have voted for Andrew.
I voted for Andrew.
Oh dear.
I have voted for other Asher.
Guys, let's reveal our cards.
Oh,
with
guys.
a 3, a 2, a 1.
Oh, guys.
Yes! We got him! We got this bastard!
Fucking A.
Andrew.
Fucking hell,
right.
Andrew.
I
You've
was-
got a
I was
microphone
the
there, a
Mafia.
microphone there. Have your say.
That's right. I was the Mafia.
God. What's your rating?
My rating, 1.5.
My man! Giving this, I'm on Andrew's mic now, giving him a hug.
God. Yep, 1.5 out of 10. Just atrocious.
Oh, God.
Diabolical film.
Yep.
Very bad.
Yep.
I gave it a 0.5 more than Phantom of the Paradise because I liked the ideas.
This is like me. I'm
Because,
looking
yeah,
in a
I can't be mad
mirror.
at him.
Because
I
I
can't be mad at
liked
him.
the ideas. I like the blood magic. I like the giant hunting society. What are you showing?
Nah, fuck you guys. This is the one time that I've actually been right.
Yep.
And have lynched the Mafia with my boys.
Oh my gosh,
I'm
Asher.
so happy
Asher,
about
were you
this.
seriously considering me? Because
A little bit, because I think 1.5 is...
Yeah.
I guess
See,
you guys really hated this
It
film.
it was obvious to me that Asher had terrible taste. Of course, he was going to give it a 5 out of 10.
That's
And
always-
Lewis has good taste, so you know.
you.
If I had given it a 3, I would have been the Mafia
Yeah,
immediately,
dude, I would have
right?
been like, there's no way you
Fuck.
hated this film. God.
This was a tough film.
Yep.
To Mafia 4.
Yeah.
I did my best, and I thought I did all right. I was really hoping that I would get Asher to vote for other Asher.
It was close. It was close.
You were convincing me at some points, but I was like, I feel like maybe I was being a bit meta. I was like, I feel like I know other Asher so well. Plus, I feel like he has explained himself rather well, and he can't help that I did go first and give all the big criticisms. So I feel like I just felt he was being genuine.
And also, as I said, again, maybe this is relating back to my weird kind of way of rating films, but I thought this was better than 50% of the Marvel films that I've seen because of the fact that I found it funny to laugh at, and because also, you know, it did try and be, you know, different in a way that those Marvel films wouldn't try and do.
It was more of a dark fantasy
Yeah,
sort
that
of
was what
superhero,
gave it
quote
0.9
superhero
more,
film.
you know?
Yeah.
But I still thought this was a bad film. Like, I can definitely respect and acknowledge 1.5 out of 10 as being a good and accurate rating of the film.
That's the most
That's
accurate
why
rating.
I agreed with him immediately.
Yeah. Andrew, just go off. Give your entire thoughts.
It really sucked. I hated a lot of it. I would have stood up probably and walked out.
Same.
If it weren't for the fact that I was going to do a hilarious and original podcast later that evening.
Guys, we actually missed the opportunity to ask for a refund because they turned the lights on in the cinema before the two end credit scenes, and that like you couldn't really see the entirety of the shots. And I was actually
that was
considering
bullshit.
like that you shouldn't have done that. Like, that doesn't happen on Marvel films. Like,
I
they
actually
bring them up a little bit.
Actually, I was considering going up afterwards and saying that was a shit film. Can I have a refund? Like, I just wanted to see what they'd say.
I'm sure that in their contracts or whatever, they've got stuff that protects them from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You'd have absolutely no grounds to stand on.
But essentially, man, the one-liners just were so bad.
Yep.
So
Way
bad.
worse than Captain Marvel.
It was
for me.
horrible. The pacing was terrible. I liked the opening scene. I really liked it. Even though I didn't like the voiceover, I thought I really appreciated how quick it was and how it was establishing the lore really quickly of the ancient past. But it was just so stupid. Things were too convenient. God!
yeah.
It sucked!
Yeah.
Do not watch this film.
I have to
No,
say,
no,
I have to
guys, watch
compliment
the
you.
And the
Unless
fact,
you have shit taste.
the fact that you rated this 5 out of 10 is deeply upsetting.
See, I think we have to be justified in using some amount of meta knowledge. Just because, imagine if we came at this and we were discussing, you know, our ratings and our arguments for it. I feel like we'd all pick Asher just because, like, 5 out of 10. Come on, you know? But the thing is that we know that knowing Asher's taste for, like, it had all the blood and the body horror and the gore and everything. We know that Asher's into that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So, we have to be kind of justified to some extent in using meta knowledge, but not too much.
Maybe I was a little reckless in a 5, maybe a 4, but
A 4!
But I just think there were special parts of the. Okay, Now, I don't want to condone piracy, but don't pay for this film.
Just go to your friend's house if they've rented it out.
Yeah.
Hey, unethical life pro
From
tips. Convince
Blockbuster.
your friend that this is the best film ever. Get them to rent it out.
Yes,
And then go
yes.
and watch it at theirs, maybe.
Absolutely, that's what you should do.
But you shouldn't because it's.
I have to compliment Andrew on his rating of 4 as opposed to 3.5 because it's like there was more room because I thought you would have gone 2 out of 10. And it's like if you went 3.5, which is just the pure, 2 points
Yeah.
above your 1.5, then I would have been like, well, I know that even though this was a bad film, it's not a 1 out of 10. So then I think it would have been more obvious. And when you were getting really exasperated, and I have to commend you for sticking to the point on the blood magic, even though I thought it was sort of thing that gave you away, the way you were sticking to it, it's like, wow, maybe this really, maybe you're just that person. Maybe this does matter to you. So that's why I
The
was
thing
really
is-
stuck.
The thing is, I care a lot about blood magic. As
Guys, when he
ridiculous-
was a child, he was rescued out of a pond by blood magic.
I go to sleep, blood magic. I wake up, blood magic.
He's a poster of blood magic on his
Wikipedia
wall.
article. Blood magic. No, guys, I do care a lot about blood magic. I think it's cool.
It's a cool
I
idea.
really like blood magic, and they could have gone more into it.
That's also what gave it away,
about
'cause-
how it can be used for
'cause you
control, and
deflected-
about how it can be used
Yeah.
for seeking, and about how it can be used for mental manipulation and repair and healing.
Yeah.
There's so much more to blood magic,
Yeah.
or even sympathy. It's pretty similar to sympathy,
Yeah.
which is another sweet magical system.
That is cool.
Yeah, because I was
But-
thinking, I never really took it as blood magic. I took it as she's powered by the certain type of blood. There's a magic element to it, but then her powers are actually telekinesis because she can contort people's bodies with her hands. That's how I took.
No, you're fucking stupid.
That's
'Cause
how I
think,
took it.
No, because you would have
Yeah.
been interpreting her to be more sort of essentially magic when
Yeah.
she was
Yeah,
a
yeah.
witch.
Just-
she was a
wasn't-
human
She
witch.
wasn't arcane.
Yeah.
She wasn't
'Cause
arcane.
see,
What I would have preferred is if you see maybe some blood coming out of her hands or something, just so I can get the connection, so it's clear this is meant to be blood magic or something.
This is the sound of a normie who doesn't know shit.
Because he said
about
before,
blood
she said
magic.
the demon queen, and I was going to pick him out there.
Yeah,
that
but
she's
you know
not
what
a
I mean.
demon.
She's some
I-
sort of
yeah,
evil,
that's why I didn't
evil
pick you
bitch.
out.
I had
That's
to
what
side
meant.
with Lewis on this, even though I did pick out that it was blood magic. I just felt that they communicated it not very well, and they could have made it more explicit.
And
I
also,
just, yeah.
when she took the guy, the warthog pig thing, and she took him
The changeling.
Yeah, when she took him down to changed his size,
Oh, and then he fucking explodes.
yeah. To me, there was like, what about controlling someone's blood would cause their entire size to shrink? I
because
could get it with
okay.
those
I'll
the
defend that.
sisters.
Youthening him, making him younger.
Yeah, because he was a changeling, and part of his ability is to morph and grow into this sort of
She
whatever.
was just controlling his body.
She was
Oh,
controlling his
guys,
body, and his
also,
body was blood.
also that scene when she was shrinking him, he was like, "Hey, that's not fair. You promised." As if, I'm sorry, I promised. Oh, I'll put you back to your big state. I'm so sorry.
You're right. I did promise. Here you
Yeah.
go, back to normal.
It gave me real Scrappy Doo vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
His voice reminded me of an old time Cinemafia podcast fan favorite
Oh, no.
episode. Whoa.
Yeah,
What's all this then? What's all this then, my love?
Ah, yes.
He sounded just like that.
Captain Talos
from Captain Marvel, yeah.
It doesn't seem like so long ago. In fact.
I'll still defend that I think the blood magic wasn't properly communicated. Maybe I'm dumb, but to me it just looked like she had some blood magic that powered her, but then her powers came across just as general telekinesis, body control. I didn't think it was clear enough for me. It didn't look cool aesthetically.
I think I was able to defend myself to the point of realism.
Yeah,
because
that's the
I
thing.
because I do care about it.
Yeah.
But all of that aside, we should wrap up.
Yep. That's
Wow,
a good point.
this
I like
guy
that you're
acting
taking
like a
control.
host. I'm gonna-
Grabbing the Hellboy by the horns. I'll leave it there. Guys, thanks for joining us on what I think is the 11th episode of Cinemafia.
I believe so.
Who
Yeah.
knows? Look, this has been Lewis,
Other Asher,
Andrew.
and Asher.
and join us next week when we shall be reviewing.
an undetermined film that I haven't told them
Well,
yet.
would you like to give us the title? Because, you may as well. We're not going to search it up. Give us the title, Asher.
Love Exposure.
We are going to be reviewing Love Exposure.
Directed by.
Sion Sono.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. We'll see you guys next time. It's
See
a
ya.
goodbye from me.
Bye-bye.
I will say nothing.
Guys,
I was waiting for him. Goodbye.
Bye.
see you guys later. Goodbye.